DIMP Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, apps here from DIMP Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is DIMP Digital's flagship video game podcast where we take you through the ups and the downs from the world of video games. We're here on your favourite podcast app and YouTube absolutely free. However, if you want to support the grassroots independent endeavour, head over to patreon.com/DIMP Digital or head over to twitch.tv/DIMP Digital and you can join the community. Hashtag hand in pocket. I'm joined once again on this edition by the nearly man, Resident Ref Logan. That might need to be reined in a little bit. That's getting silly. But other than that, how's it going?
Yep, good. As always, happy to be a regular feature these days on the old podcast.
Adkins reckons you've nicked his job.
Well, it's always the same thing. If someone's going to come along and do it better, then you're at the risk.
Same with any job, though. Someone could come and host this better, and then that'll be it. I'll be out of my ear. Wouldn't have a choice.
CEO rooted out.
What was that old fucking BBC bloke that everyone loved? Moyles? Like the ultimate radio presenter.
Moyles.
He don't do that anymore, does he? He packed in a long time ago. But
yeah, he's been on. He's not on Radio 1,
right.
But he left Radio 1. I think he was out for about maybe 6 months a year, and he's been doing the breakfast show on XFM or Radio X now.
Bloody hell.
Must be about 5 years. It might even be longer than that. So he's literally just he's doing exactly the same thing, same features, just slightly different, more kind of rocky alternative music.
So maybe he wants
Made
to
a
take
career
over this
out of
role.
I couldn't talk to him.
Might be all right. Might be a nice bloke. He's going in the jungle, isn't he? With Hancock.
No, he's not, is he?
Well, if Hancock's in, then who knows?
Everyone's up, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I had this discussion. I know we're going off piece already. But how is an MP a celebrity? Like, that's bizarre, isn't it? Like,
how is an MP able to leave their fucking post and fuck off for a few weeks? And you're supposed to be looking after constituents. You voted him for that, not to go off and do silly bollocks.
Mental, isn't it? And he's gone, thank you, I'll have the pay day. Goes to
they've
show
suspended
you everything
him, to be
that's
fair,
wrong.
haven't they? So at least they've done something. Anyway, that is well off-piste. Let's get into the episode. So FGL always seems to be the regular kick-off item because the games are coming thick and fast. And some biggies. Well, one in particular, huge game, finally getting reviewed, which we will get to. But a little sneaker has stolen in, which I wasn't expecting. I completely lost track of when this game was due out. And if I'm right in saying there's usually beta access lurking, all sorts. But Football Manager 2023, the reviews have started to trickle in. They're not all there. I think there's 9 as we record this. So not a, you want 40 or 50 before hoping to sort of accept the score as something that's going to be reasonably locked in. But as we record this, it's sitting on an 83, which happens to be one of yours, Logan. What's your thoughts on... First of all, I assume you're getting Football Manager 2023, or you'll be playing it on that Game Pass, or is it...
it's already downloaded on Game Pass, yeah.
But you can't get to it till, I think it's next week, or it's in like a week's time when it's actually out.
I don't know. I'm not too sure what the story is. So I kind of... There was an option to basically pre-download it,
right,
which is like 100 meg.
Yeah.
And then today it was like, here you go, you can actually... download. And it was about 3 gigs. I don't know I'm sure it's normally a bit bigger than that, but I need to have a look at some point today and figure it out. But yeah, I'll be obviously giving it a go, even if it is a slightly half-baked Game Pass version.
So is it a different version then? Is that what's been?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of when I played it, it's kind of like a halfway house between what used to be Touch and then the full-blown kind of equivalent version. I don't know whether that's true. It just felt a little bit different to me. I don't want to chuck that out there and go it isn't the same.
No.
But it didn't feel when I played last year's one that it was like an exact replica on the Xbox. It didn't feel that way to me.
Yeah, there's a. So what have we got here? I'm just in the Xbox store now. We've got a console version, which is available. We've got an Xbox edition, and that's 2022. So this is what they do to you, these fucking things. I put the number in specifically, and it still brought that tut up.
Yeah. So the fact that it's a console edition, I think, makes it
one of two.
I think
editions.
They do a slightly different one. I mean, I'd love to obviously play the full fat version, but I haven't got a device capable of running that. And it annoys me because this Xbox is more than capable, yet they still chuck out this
the console version.
I
did see the PlayStation 5 version's been delayed for some reason. That'll be the first time it's appeared on the PS5 anyway. So clearly something wrong there, but maybe you'll get stuck into that and report back with some findings. But that's sitting on an 83, which I wasn't really flagging as a game that's going to be coming this week, but that could go up. I mean, I think last year's one sat on an 86, so that's what you're aiming for. You want to breach the 85s of that one. I think is the general thought process. Every point does matter at this stage as well, because it's getting getting very close. So we'll see. We'll be updating if that makes any significant movement in the coming weeks. But the big one is God of War Ragnarok, which at the moment is sitting on a stunning 94. I don't know how that's done that. Well, obviously I had hands on it, so there's no reason for me to say it shouldn't be that score. But all the signs are pointing towards, well, very good, but more of the same. Which doesn't equal 94s in my experience. It equals a high 80, if you're lucky, a 90. The original did get a 95 originally, and then the PC mob got their hands on it earlier this year and brought it down a notch. Those Master Race cunts fucking blew that from a 95 down to a 94. So it sits level pegging with the original. I'm surprised by that score. Like I said, it is a matter of margins, but there is something usually cooking when you get like anything a 92, 93, 94 level. But what did you make when you saw that score roll in?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, I think you went out for some predictions, and I think I said 89 in the group, because I thought that's probably where I saw it sitting. I thought, it'll get a 5 point, it'll still be really good, but it'll get a 5 point knock for not being...
Yeah.
I think the original one might have had this like surprise factor about it.
Yep. Had all the advantages.
And then when you get something that goes, it's exactly the same, they've just done a bit more of it and expanded on it, they go, it's a little bit... 5 points down or whatever. So I thought 89, 90, but yeah, I mean 94 is obviously very nice. I'll definitely take that.
Yeah, that's really bolstered your effort to go at this Grand Prix, because you are now level pegging on games, which is 9 apiece with Adkins, with a 13-point gap. So he's leading you by 13 points. And the final game he has is this Sonic Frontiers, which could go either way. And your final game is Pentiment, which could go either way also. It's an unknown quantity. Obsidian are well thought of. This looks like it's a much narrower game than what we're used to from them, like big sprawling RPG. This is not that. This is a smaller project, but we've said these art house shitters sometimes score well with the critics, so from your perspective, you're hoping for that, and still, I think, hoping that Sonic Frontiers trips over its own bollocks on the way out the door and doesn't quite. If it hits a 70, it's on as far as I'm concerned. I'm thinking, right, if that Frontiers sits there on a 70, that's going to make it very close indeed. But pressure mounting.
I mean, hopefully, it'd be great if. I mean, it's unlikely that God of War is going to move from that with the amount of reviews it's got, but. If I got nicked a few points from Football Manager and or God of War, and then sort of got it down to maybe 10, and then there's like this 10-point difference between Sonic and Pentiment, as you say, it really does. Both of them, to a certain extent, could hit a real range of scores. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm definitely still the underdog. Adkins is in the driving seat, but
he's chucking that out there, underdog mentality like Jose.
Well, It's true though. I'd rather be in Adkins' seat where I've got the points on the board, whereas I'm hoping. Yeah, it's not. If I had saying a bit more, I mean, if it was Football Manager to come out and that was my last game,
you'd be more confident.
It's a kind of a different story. But because Pentiment was a sub in from me, and it looks like it should do well. Obsidian games have done well, but you just don't know.
No, it's it'd be interesting. I don't even know if it's going to be resolved next week. That woofer's kicking off, but knock it off. He's but no, I don't know when so Sonic should have a score next week, and Pentiment may well have one next week or the following week. So it's all to play for, as we like to say. So let's move into the first item on the docket for this edition. PlayStation VR price and details have been announced by Sony, causing quite a stir amongst the gaming community. Before we get into it, and before this was even a thing, in terms of knowing what the price was and the dates, etc., what's the percentage that you'd put on ever considering, and I'm talking about reasonable pricing as well, like 50 quid, everyone would buy one. In your head, you knew it was going to cost a bundle of money, but didn't know how much of bundles of money. But before that was the case, what sort of percentage was there even a chance of you sniffing around a PSVR? Was it slim to none, or are we talking any sort of 40% jobbies and higher?
Not really. I mean, I think if it come to a silly price, then I'd buy it. But I just don't really get the point in VR. Like it still feels like a gimmick. It doesn't feel like a valid extension to me. So I'm not sure I would buy it on the because it's for me it's the games that drive it, not the like if all of a sudden Call of Duty was available in VR, like I would be like, that's interesting. Like so I feel like it's the actual games that are going to drive my desire to get on VR.
Resident Evil, your favourites?
No, you see, I think it also lends itself to certain gaming experiences better, like more atmospheric games that I tend to not enjoy so much anyway. So it's unlikely. I can understand why people would get one, and I think I've seen some sandbox VR games and things. They look quite cool. Like there's no, I saw some geezer going around being Spider-Man and stuff in one. It's it's a fascinating bit of technology, and I'm not saying it's not in itself good, but to spend money on it, it's got to add something on top of it. And at the moment, I feel like you have to sacrifice more than you gain for the games that I like to play.
No, yes, they're all fair points. I had an Oculus Rift, whatever version it was, a couple of years ago. Played Half-Life Alyx on it, got through that, and then sent it back. Full refund, Amazon. Thank you, Jeff. Nice and easy. Right. And I really did not enjoy playing that thing because, well, to be honest, it's in the heat of summer, the height of summer, I should say. So it's fucking hot in this room. Yeah. And that didn't help. I was getting hot and stressed and whatnot. And it's a hassle to fucking put it on your head and then plug it in. Then it don't bloody work. I had some really bad issues with the tech side of things. I don't think that's the usual way of how things play out, because playing on like Biff's PlayStation VR when we just dick around on it, it worked and it was never really a problem in terms of the tech, so that may have been just a bit of a an exception, but still that tarnished my experience completely. I was like, why would I put up with this? I want to just sit down and play a game. VR's just not calling for me. And I agree that generally the games aren't there. There might be a handful that are really worth playing, but that hasn't sustained itself regularly like it does on a console market. So in terms of percentage for me, it would have been 10% before knowing any of the details in terms of price, to be honest, because I'll never say never. That's why it's always at least some percentage. It's never a 0%, but it just weren't really ticking any sort of boxes that I was after. Anyway, they announced that it'll be officially launching February 22nd, 2023. So not a long time away. Little New Year jobby for people. And it will be launching at what some are describing as an eye-watering £530. There is a bundle with Horizon Call of the Mountain, which comes in at a nice round £570. So you've got two options there. You get the PSVR headset, you get 2 Sense controls, I think they're called, and you get some headphones of it as well. There's a charging station for the controllers, which is sold separately, coming at $39.99, 40 UK pounds. So that's that. Before I add an extra layer to this, what's the initial gut response to a price of 530 UK pounds?
I mean, it's a hell of a lot, right? Like that for a bit of I mean, I know I'm probably oversimplifying it, but for an add-on,
yeah,
like doubling. I mean, if you wanted to buy a PS5 and that, good lord, you know, it's a serious investment. So I think I'm surprised more than anything at that price point.
Are you though? Just up the price of the consoles. We had the control of the DualSense Edge coming out at over 200 quid. It's just it just seems to be the way they're playing it.
I don't know whether it's, you know, clearly inflation and things and supply chain problems and you name it is having an effect. Like prices of things are going up. It's dear, but then I go back to things like buy a tablet. Like those things are generally dear, and you know, for some reason I'm okay with spending. Well, for some reason, my point would be I literally just spent 530 quid on a phone, like, and I don't even blink at that. I go bargain, thank you. Whereas for literally a screen I can strap to my head and play a game in VR, I go, that's dear. Why is it so expensive? And it's like, well, really, is it? And I try to have some perspective, but it feels in like my point is, if you need the console and the headset and some ancillaries and a game. You know, how much should we talk? Like probably somewhere £1,200 or something, maybe even more than that. You know, once you know, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is a lot of
money.
In
a cost of living crisis, no less.
Well, I think that's where. I mean, Sony couldn't have predicted that this mess was going to happen economically, but could you think when they would have started this? It would have been years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's not their fault. And I'm just saying it could be more of a. It's one of those things. I mean, I say a cost of living crisis. People ain't feeling the pinch, but by the time that you know, we've had 3 months of winter, you know, people ain't gonna have a pot. They'll be spending that a month on their gas electricity bill. So, you know, it's a bit of an unfortunate bit of timing for them, I think, in terms of the release and how it's coincided with everything. But still, it's just. You know, all things considered, it feels expensive, I think, is where I sit with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, just seeing something at over £500, and I agree with the comparison to the phones, because we don't blink at that level of money being tossed away. The real caveat or the real difference is it's an essential now, isn't it, these phones?
Like,
although you could find cheaper versions of it, absolutely. You don't have to spend 550 quid on whatever. Like you can find cheaper versions of those, but this PlayStation VR 2 clear luxury item in the entertainment space, where if you are feeling the pinch, you're unlikely to be looking at the console, let alone this as an add-on. Anyone sitting there who hasn't got a PS5 or PlayStation VR 2 because it's not out yet, and then thinks, "Well, I'll just go in 2 feet now." I don't know who those people are, because I always say that in my opinion, the PS5 cost part is almost a sunk cost at this rate. It's whoever's already got it would have already got it for other reasons. But if for whatever reason you decide that PSVR is the headset for you, and then you have to buy the PlayStation 5 to make that a reality for yourself, I think you've blown it for yourself. So I don't have any sympathy for anyone sitting there in that boat when they're looking down the barrel of $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost, because the PlayStation 5 itself is worth, in my opinion, the money that's been paid out for it. It's a console that I use weekly, if not daily, depending on circumstances. But let's now introduce the second layer, which is the context around pricing and history. So let's compare it directly to its predecessor, the PlayStation VR original. Came out in 2016.
Bloody hell.
It's crazy when you think about it. So the original was priced at $349.99, £350 UK pounds, but it did not include the PlayStation camera, which was £40 UK pounds. That was a necessity. You had to have that. And then if we compare it to what you're getting in this box, you know, two Sense controllers, the PlayStation Move controllers, which are the equivalent back then, were £70 UK pounds. So actually, you'd run yourself up to 460 odd quid if you're buying that back in 2016. I'm almost certain there was like a launch bundle for $450 with it all. I think that's a fair price to sort of inject in your head that $450 was the original, and now this is up to $530 for the equivalent. So just shy of a, what's that, £80 upgrade on there. And some people will say, well, the tech's done it. And here's the other interesting thing. This is a bit of a apples and oranges, but it kind of, again, we're moving on the tech front. PlayStation 4 launched at £350 UK pounds. PS5, £450 UK pounds. £100 premium on that. Now it's sitting at £480 UK pounds. So Jim's, as we know, cranked up the prices. So if you were to sit down and look at this predecessor, it's not unreasonable to come to this conclusion that this is a 2022 time in terms of economics and whatnot. It's an increase. The technological side of it seems to be a massive upgrade, is what I'm led to believe by those in the know. Like compared to the original, which is very much a budget headset with issues. The fact that the camera tracking was needed for that PlayStation camera is just a complete no-no. This is full inside-out tracking with hugely more advanced controllers as well. When you put it in that context, it doesn't seem unreasonable that it would cost that much more. And if you actually wind back time, it was a luxury item back in its day in 2016. It's just that obviously the numbers have gone up, but then, as we know, every number has kind of gone up. So I'm going to pause there because there's another layer to introduce in the part. But any response to that nonsense?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying. I guess my thought would be there would be some R&D cost bundled into that initial PSVR,
mate.
Right,
it was put together with chewing gum.
I know, but I'm just saying there would
no
be.
Eye tracking.
I know.
Big fucking pass-through box. Move controllers came out in 2011. It all got chucked away, in my opinion. 85% of it binned, I think. They went, let's do it properly. Anyway.
So what you're saying is there was an original cost, and what they've done is a load of R&D to now do it again
properly,
ground up, and that's where there's a front-loaded additional cost. Because what you'd expect is a huge upfront cost, where in developing the technology, and then this to be an iteration. So then to add a load more onto it, like ideally, surely you would want to make this more accessible, not less.
This is the thing. But then PS4 to PS5, sunk R&D cost should be around the same price. That's gone up. That went up £100.
Yeah, I feel it's slightly different.
Right, here we go. He's changing it
with console. No, so I think because the technology inside becomes more powerful. I mean, it's the same with your PC. Your PC doesn't get cheaper; it gets more expensive in a weird kind of way. So I think it feels like it's the same with consoles. Like you're buying something better, and there is an argument for that for the headset, but largely the screen's an improvement, but it's more an indictment of the bungled original one, I think, that we're seeing here, perhaps.
Yeah, that is muddying the waters.
But I would have thought they'd have been looking to make it more accessible. I feel like they've priced it prohibitively, and whether that's due to market conditions, supply problems, sunk R&D costs, whatever it is, it just doesn't feel like it should be going up in the same way a console would.
Well, tech's tech, mate. Come on. These phones, they're not going down, are they? They're always going up. They are iterations every year.
I've got 120 refresh rate on it now. Like, can you imagine that being a requirement that long ago? Like the actual fundamental like the phone, the power in that phone now is incredible. Like really, like when you consider how it moves on. And I know everyone will be going, "Oh, but that screen that you've got in front of you now, like this gorgeous," and all that. It's like, yeah, it probably is,
Eye
but
tracking.
Like. It
haptic
feels
controllers.
like
It's got haptics in the headset. It rumbles your head.
The base value of it has gone up £200 nearly. $350 for the original.
No, but $350 without the essential. It's $450. That's the thing. If you're doing like for like, you have to include the controllers and whatever tracking's required. So it's $450.
Did they do that, presuming people might have already had them from previous iterations? Rather than anything
all
else?
6 people that bought the PlayStation Move controllers profited on that. But everyone else had to buy them from scratch, and at £70 UK pounds for that old turt, it was
that's a lot again. Yeah, I mean, I get your point. It still feels dear.
No, I'm not arguing it's not dear. I'm trying to set context and extra layers. So the next stage to go is to move away from Sony and their hardware, what they've done historically, and it's to look at the market of headsets that are available today. And this actually was more interesting than I thought. Now, in order to do my research, it was a simple Google best VR headsets in 2022, number of websites. In the end, I settled for PC Gamer, kept it in the gaming space, and they had like a top 5. So I went off and just researched about their prices so we can get an idea of what VR today is kind of costing. Now, the obvious top draw is this MetaQuest, okay? 399 UK pounds for the 128 gigabit. That comes with the controllers and it's inside-out tracking. Doesn't need to be tethered to anything. So there is a low power, compromise with that one. The 256 gigabyte version's 500 quid. So we're already stepping on Jim's toes there, keeping in mind that these were all £100 cheaper a few months back. They've raised their prices there. So for an extra 30 quid, you could land yourself a nice shiny PSVR 2, which by all accounts has better tech in it. Anyway, parking that aside, MetaQuest is definitely the most popular headset because it's the cheapest and it's the most convenient.
Yeah. So you don't have to have an initial outlay and everything. It kind of is there. So
we've talked about that. Is people not doing that? They ain't buying it. They're not. Are they?
But I know what you're saying. No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, if you wanted just to do VR gaming,
I'd pick a different hobby.
You're sitting there, and I'm sitting here. I want to do some VR. I like it. I want to buy it for me kids, right? And you're thinking, I'll get me kids it. I don't want to spend 1,200 quid getting this room. That's ridiculous.
Well, should have got in early with the PlayStation.
They've been around his parents' mums, or they've been around his friends' parents. They've gone, they've got this guy. It's VR. It's amazing. Father Christmas has to get it for me for Christmas.
It'll make half them sick.
And then you go and look on it. You go, go on. How much?
Well,
what? I need the.
They should already have a PS5. What sort of paupers are these families? They should already have one. Anyway,
they've bolted it on to Father Christmas's request. They wanted it for Christmas.
No. So the MetaQuest 2, that is absolutely its selling point, that it's just a single standalone device. But it does come at a compromise in terms of what it can do. I'm sure it's good enough for most people. That's why it's the most popular. It's the cheapest. It's the most convenient. It's easy. So I think that's but even then, it's 30 quid less. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to say more proprietary tech and equipment that's out there. We've got the Valve Index, okay? Right. This is what plugs into a PC. And again, we're going to ignore the starting costs of PC. Again, we're assuming that people aren't just suddenly got the bug to play VR and they want to just spend fucking silly money on getting the whole lot in one go and only use it for that. Ridiculous if people are playing at that. Valve Index, headset plus controllers only. So it doesn't include the base stations, which are to increase the tracking accuracy and give you like a little play space that you can draw out so you don't smash your knuckles. At a guess, how much do you think the headset and controllers are on their own?
Honestly, I've got no idea. It could be either. I'm going to go 600.
689 UK pounds.
Yeah.
And that's with half the kit. If you want the base stations to have the full tracking, 919 UK pounds. Okay?
What are we doing?
Vive Pro 2. Now, this is a full headset, controllers, and includes trackers. Okay?
Yep.
£1,300. £1,300. That still needs to go into a PC. Let's get something a bit cheaper, shall we? HP Reverb G2. Headset and controllers. £682. HTC Vive Cosmos Elite. 700 UK pounds. And that was the top 5 from PC Gamer. That's the market they're playing in, isn't it?
They're not playing in that market.
Aren't they?
No. They're playing in a different market.
Well, they're not. They just put the price of the PlayStation 5 up. They don't care. They're playing in the big boys market.
I get what you're saying. So I think they're playing in a different market though, because they're not playing in this sort of PC space. Like you might as well just chuck all that in the bin, because these people that have got a PlayStation have got largely not. I mean, I reckon a small percentage of that world are like you and me. Right, where you get multiple consoles, where you've got a PC as well. You've got the luxury of choice. Most people will go, there you go. If they've got kids, they'll go, there you go. I think this is, so I think all of that, in the context of the wider technology, you're right. But because they're not appealing to that audience, I don't think, they're appealing to a console market that are used to things priced in a certain price range with an element of convenience.
Are they, though?
In what respects?
Well, surely there
is that
are
an assumption? Is that a nonsense assumption?
No. Most people aren't going to buy this, but that's why the original only sold 4 million and there was 120 million PlayStation 4s out there. It's not for most people. It's a piece of tech that's a luxury item, no doubt, and there are people clearly out there that will be happily spending their money.
I just find it bizarre, right? Like, I find it bizarre that they're looking at it going, we've got 120 million we could flog this to that have got a console already. Like, surely you would want to price that and make it commercially available and attractive to as many of those people as possible. Like, and surely they must. And are they doing it at 530 quid? Are they doing it? Plus, and you need to get a game and extras with that. No, it's probably a £600-700 investment, really.
It's not for them. It ain't for them. In my research, I couldn't believe how expensive this. I thought this tech's been running 10 years, give or take, since it started rumbling. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe. I mean, I'm sure there's cheaper headsets out there. Absolutely, there is. But the fact that the highest spec, cheapest one is only 30 quid off what Jim's been touting, and it's it won't be comparable in terms of what it can do visually and the tech inside it. I just think that this is the VR in general is not made or unless you want to do the Nintendo cardboard to it, then have at it. But this clearly to me just drove home that actually it's for a different audience, and obviously someone's crunched the numbers and saying if we sell it at this price and only sell it to a fraction of the people that have the PSVR, PlayStation 5, we're still going to make some money on it and be able to have enough power to do some interesting things of our studios. Yeah, you can't can't just keep wheeling out cheap tut because people are moaning it's cheap. The first one was that, and it wasn't even that cheap. Cheap tut, crap compared to other things on the market. It was deemed as fucking camera tracking it, fucking PS Move tut. I don't know.
It's just an interesting thing. Like I always think that if a console's doing it, they're trying to. I mean, we were talking last week about Phil and him trying to. Got all these.
And what is he up to really now? He's getting told off for not growing.
Why have they ignored it?
Because it's not a mass market. Because the whole thing with Xbox is as many people at a lower price. Let's do it that way. Whereas Sony, even in the way they price their games at the moment, 70 UK pounds. It's like those that want it will pay it, and we can live off that and do pretty well out of it. I think it's just two different philosophies. One is to penetrate as many people as possible, and the other one's like, we know the market can accept a headset in this price range, or we think it can, we don't know, and we know that if we sell the units that we've made at this price, we'll make money, and if the software's there, then perhaps it'll grow, but it's not going to fly off the shelves. I completely agree that optically 530 quid is too much, but VR in general, as I believe on my research has proved, is quote unquote too much for my tastes. But clearly, 1,300 quid just for that. Fuck me. Anyway, it was just interesting to layer it a bit more because
I agree. Yeah,
looking at just the numbers, it's easy just to chuck a few stones at them and go, "That's fucking ridiculous." But when you look at what the market's doing, it's not a cheap hobby, No,
I mean clearly they felt they've priced it at what is a comparatively reasonable price for other VR products out there. Yeah. But I still think if they're looking at it that way, I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting what the market research says because no doubt they've done some. But it just feels like the people that would buy those sort of expensive products are not the people that are going to buy this. I don't. Because they've already got those expensive ones. They're not going to go, oh, instead of buying that £1,300 one, I'll go and buy a PlayStation headset. I don't know. It's just interesting, isn't it? But it feels, it's for a console product, it still feels dear. But agreed, it's not going to penetrate
They started charging
the
150
majority.
quid for controllers, and that's when you knew it was over. Like they're going to try and there's clearly a audience within the audience that have a lot of money that they want to spend on high ticket items, and I think that's who it's targeted as. And
where is that money? I don't know where it is, and I don't know what these people are doing. I need to find it. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but there's like what they call in mobile gaming, you get the whales that spend hundreds a month, thousands sometimes. Like it's just there is like this subset of people that we're not privy to. That
it does make me wonder. Like, even some of these mobile games.
Hall is the closest thing I know to that because he just chucks money at Turt, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but he does it specifically at this. Like he doesn't do it broadly. Nah. Like he just chucks it at this. But even he would balk at something like that. But anyway, if you want to
play with the big boys, the way I look at it now is this is clearly for like, I don't know, someone who collects Ferraris or whatever. To them, it's like, well, this is the price we pay.
Pocket money.
To us. I think it's difficult for us because we're like, well, we're on the cutting edge, we're on the front line, we're doing a gaming podcast. We obviously want to buy and play every type of gaming experience out there. And even we're like, fuck me.
Yeah.
I ain't paying that. And then you feel like you're being left out of something. But as I said, my experience with VR has not been very good. So I'm not overly concerned about giving this a miss.
It's a gimmick for me, and I'm not paying £500, £600 for gimmicks.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business of doing that.
But some people think it's brilliant and the best thing ever, and they think they love gaming via that medium. So you can understand why they would want to invest in it. But there we go. Let the audience decide there whether that's. I'd be interested to see how it does. I'm assuming not very well, but we will see in due time. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has enjoyed the most lucrative launch in the history of the long-running franchise. So Phil's efforts to play it down as a sort of a small fry, up-and-comer IP really looking a bit silly now, a bit daft. That's according to publisher Activision, which claimed on Monday that the game topped $800 million in sales for its first 3 days of availability. In doing so, it surpassed the previous 5-day franchise sales record set in 2011 by Modern Warfare 3. That was taken from Video Games Chronicle. Worth noting that this was being broadly sold at 70 UK pounds. And $70 therefore. So the monetary side, it's got a leg up on Modern Warfare 3. I don't know how much it was back. I feel like it's 50 back then.
Well, and you can get this Alt edition as well, where they're chucking other two away. That's about 100 quid.
Yeah.
So there's money to be made.
Nonetheless, a return to form, to say the least. Before we get into other things about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, what do you make of this? Expected, or even you? Did you raise an eyebrow and go, "Cool, bloody hell"?
I think there's a couple of reasons why it's done so well. So, firstly, I think it's come off, a couple of. I think everyone really enjoyed Modern Warfare, right? I think that was a really enjoyable Call of Duty. Introduced Warzone, and then we had Cold War, which was kind of like okay reception, and it got played, and then we had Vanguard, which was in the dumps, and I think everyone was naturally looking for and wanted to get excited for a really good Call of Duty, and because it's Infinity Ward and everyone was really enjoyed Modern Warfare, I think it's natural to get excited about Modern Warfare 2. And I think they've done it quite cleverly as well, where they're positioning this as kind of a couple of sort of 3 weeks or so, I think, before Warzone 2 comes out. So people are on here grinding the guns, leveling the guns up, getting the attachments and everything for Warzone. So I think there's a pool of people that really wanted a good Call of Duty to play, and I think there's an increased pool of people that are just playing this and bought it so that they can level guns and do everything in preparation for Warzone's release.
The fast follower of Warzone may have helped it then, is what you're saying there. Because I had said that'll come in 2023, but maybe they saw that it also increases demand of the franchise.
Oh, it 100% version. Does. There's people that only bought Vanguard to level guns. That's it. That's all they're doing it for. They're not playing it because they want to play Vanguard or even Cold War. They're doing it and they bought it so that they can get everything leveled up, because it's easier to level guns up through multiplayer games than it is while you're trying to play Warzone, you want your best attachments and everything and loadout ready for that Warzone encounter. You don't want to be missing that key attachment. So the way that they've set up the model is really clever in terms of incentivizing people to not play the free-to-play, but to funnel
yourself back into paying out, and it's also then get the battle pass for Warzone anyway.
Yeah,
pay it that way. So for those that said, well, they're giving Call of Duty away for free, no one's going to play the original, they've put a nice juicy bit of bait there for people to go and buy the £70 UK version and level up their guns. Yeah. So they're not silly when they did that.
No, they know. They know.
I didn't. I thought it was careless, but proven completely wrong. You actually came to me and was like, look, I need to be speaking about this Call of Duty. And I don't know if it's positive or negative. I chucked out a comment. We were having a bit of more of a philosophical thing. It's like, at what point can full impressions be provided on a multiplayer game? And the games in question were Overwatch 2, and then in preparation for some time down the line, Modern Warfare 2. But your response was neither of them deserve it, and I was like, cool, he's bitten both of them. But we're here to talk about Modern Warfare 2. What's going on? What's going on under the hood? Because I'm seeing smashing success from everywhere, but I'm also seeing, in fairness, X bug has been fixed. New bug introduced, new exploit found. What's going on? You got ear to the ground. You're trying to play it, and we was playing the Division 2, and you're blaming that for sloppy behaviour. So I'm not happy with that. I'm getting costed.
I mean, where'd you start? So, I guess it's a lot of people played the beta. I played the beta, enjoyed it. Thought, okay, this is Call of Duty. It looks really good, right? It looks, graphically, no complaints or anything. Like, I like the way the game looks.
Yeah.
Where do we start? So, first problem is, when you're in a lobby, you can't change any of your loadouts or do anything. It doesn't show you any of your character models, any of your guns, any of your levels, anything. Everyone looks the same, and you basically have to wait until you're in the game to be able to edit your loadout and do anything. Like, you can't be in the lobby waiting and think, I'll just tinker with that, because it's not your load. Like, it shows just a random loadouts.
So you just sit there and just stare at the screen until it lets you in.
You have to sit there, and then once you're in the game and you're about to play, you can go in there and do your medal with your loadouts. But you can't do that, so that's quite a fundamental bug that was really quite annoying. The menus are shocking. Like, they've redesigned all the menus and the way that you navigate through it, and it's just appalling. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. It makes it so much more difficult to do anything. Like, you're trying to invite people, trying to navigate through to things, if there's no kind of stats and things, it's just really, they've reworked it but made it worse, and that makes it frustrating. There was launch problems where people were getting kicked out of parties, and mid-game your game would just freeze and then you have to back out. You'll queue for a couple of games and someone will be a party leader, and then randomly it will stop. It will say that it's trying to search for a game, but it's not. So you then have to change the party leader. So every 2 or 3 games you have to change the party leader. And I could go on, but essentially, kind of the experience is loaded with bugs at the minute, and it feels like an excessively buggy launch, I think, is the way that I'd say to it. I'm used to having experiences with server issues and things with demand and stuff like that. That's kind of almost forgivable in that you go, right, okay, well, there's a shitload of people playing this, but fundamental bugs with the game seems really bizarre. So that's the first element.
Yep.
Right. So any questions on that?
No.
If not, move on.
No, I was going to just say, well, it's sitting on a lovely 77 on OpenCritic, so that doesn't sound too buggy to me.
Well,
65 reviews.
It's bizarre. Anyway, next problem. Right, they've completely redesigned the way that you level guns, unlock and level guns and get attachments, right? So usually the gun unlocking process is tied to your character level or your progress through the levels, like 0 to 55.
Yeah.
So, and you get perks and everything as you go through the levels, right? And that still remains to a certain degree. However, they've introduced a completely reworked gunsmith, and you have to level up different guns to a certain level to unlock the next. It's kind of like a gun family.
Right.
So to unlock,
right.
You start off with like an assault rifle version. You then have to get that gun to level 18 before you unlock, say, the SMG version, and then you have to get that to a certain level before you unlock a battle rifle version. And yeah, and you kind of have to go through it like that. Like I was trying to get to an SMG version of an M4A1.
Yeah.
But to do that, I had to go for a battle rifle version, which is quite possibly the worst gun on the game. Like, so it literally forces you to play with diabolical weapon setups to unlock different guns. And you also have to use those guns to unlock attachments for other guns. So if I want a certain sight, I've got to get a shotgun to level 12. So I can't just use my weapon that I like and level that up and get the attachments I want for it. I have to, and some would say, oh, it's good because it means that not everyone's just always playing with the same guns and have meta weapons and stuff. But the simple fact is, it's annoying and it forces you to play with guns that either don't suit your play style, or you just don't get along with. And it just forces you down this alley. Like the other day, I was literally playing it and I was like, I want to top myself. Like it was just so unenjoyable, and I was like, why is the game forcing me to play in a way that I don't enjoy, so that I can get an attachment that will make my life easier? Like that I get a better sight that I'm more comfortable with. Like it's just a really bizarre thing to do, and on top of that, it's just overly complicated.
Yeah.
Like they've tried to rework it and give people more choice, but really what they've done is just like redesigned it in a way that doesn't make it as player friendly, I think, personally.
It sounds almost as daft as that fucking challenge system that Halo Infinite had, where you know, it'd be like, well, get free kills with a sniper rifle to get the next sort of bit of experience. I was like, I don't want to use a sniper rifle. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of that about it, and I find myself having to go and use different guns. So as I'm learning the game, like I'm trying to figure out what attachments work and what look good and what don't, and which make the gun better overall to use and stuff. And it's like, you know, you just find yourself having to use guns on certain maps because then certain guns lend to certain play styles on certain maps, right? So if you've got a bigger map, you'll want a gun with a bit more range and stuff, so you'll choose an assault rifle. But instead of that, you go, oh, I need to use this SMG or whatever. So you find yourself running around and you haven't got enough range. It's just infuriating that it makes you do that a little bit, right? So that's kind of layer 2 to my frustration with the game. Layer 3.
There's a third.
Well, there's more. I could go on for ages. The kill streaks are largely pointless, right? Because all the maps they've released with the opening game have very little outside, and most of them have a large amount of space inside. So kill streaks that use the air, chopper gunners, support choppers, air strikes, mortar strikes are largely pointless, and they're the higher end of the spectrum of the kill streak. So you get to your kill streak, which is fucking hard enough as it is, because there's always someone creeping up your arsehole because the spawn is ridiculous and the map design's ridiculous. So it's hard enough to get there, and when you do get it, you don't really get any reward for it because there's no real open spaces on the maps. So this brings me on to point 3, the maps. Now, apart from the fact that one of the maps I think at the moment is disabled because of copyright issues because it's too like the real version, which is a ridiculous situation to be in the first place. There are also another 2 that are potentially in scope for that because they're too like real world likeness. That reduces the map pool down anyway.
Yeah.
On top of that, largely the maps are awful. Like they're just not well-designed maps in my view. There's a clip going around at the minute of a map where basically you're on a bridge, it's a border crossing, and it's all cars, right? And there's a clip of a guy that spawns and practically for a minute spawn dies pretty much every time because people are lobbing grenades over, blowing cars up. And generally the feeling is the maps just don't play very well. They're either slightly too big or they've got too many sight lines. Like they're just not that fun to play. So, I mean, that's a really quick whip round of my initial, you know, first 3, 4, 5 day experience of playing the game. You know, there are moments in there where you do have fun games.
Yeah.
And I haven't even touched on SBMM, so skill-based matchmaking yet, which is ultimately the biggest ruiner of Call of Duty today, and it has been for years. It's just not enjoyable. I really wish they'd just remove skill-based matchmaking completely.
Just do what I do and just be really poor for like the first month and then
it don't matter.
And then play.
It don't.
Oh.
It don't matter.
Okay.
So if you play poor for the first month, it's done on your last recent games. So it'll go.
Right.
Basically, what happens is you'll have a good game, and it'll go.
They were
Oh,
fucking
okay. We'll put you against. Yeah, it will put you up against players that have done similarly in their last games. So you come up against people all the time that are within either slightly above or slightly below your skill level, right? So that just makes every game kill, die, kill, die, kill, die, kill, die, because you're not coming up against people of different skill levels. And the idea is that it averages it out so no one gets dicked on constantly or whatever. But it just doesn't, in real world practice, in pub games, like really what you want is public games, anyone in there, random. And then in ranked modes, that's where you come up against players. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare come out the other day saying, yep, we're gonna be introducing a ranked mode. Well, that's where skill-based matchmaking should come in. Not in public team deathmatch games or whatever. It should be random. So
crapped on it.
There you go. I mean, it's fundamental mechanics are good. I like that they've removed slide cancelling because that was a plague in the last game. But even some of their movement options, right? So you can now dolphin dive forwards again, but you can't shoot whilst you're dolphin diving. Wow. So it's like, why have you added that mechanic in?
Getting behind cover quick.
It doesn't really. It doesn't really do it. Like the idea is surely, from a gaming perspective, like you'd want to be able to have a shotgun and like dive through a door and kills, but you can't. Like you can't shoot just whilst you're
there and get blown away.
Yeah, it just makes you just can't do anything. So sometimes it's just like, what are you using those mechanics for? Like rather than just going, here's a dolphin dive. Well, what are you adding that to the game to introduce? Like what are you adding with that? Like it's just a bit bizarre. The gameplay's solid. Oh, sorry. And there's another thing I need to say, right, that I haven't touched on already, is that there's very little. The guns are completely unbalanced.
Right.
Like you'd expect an SMG to be short range, and if you come up against someone with, say, an assault rifle at a certain range, say 10, 15 meters, you'd expect to win that battle with an SMG. Like obviously, if you're hitting your shots and stuff. But that doesn't happen, right? No. You find there's literally no advantage to having an SMG in this game. Like it's only disadvantages. You get a bit more movement speed, but in a gun battle, you lose it every time to an assault rifle at any range.
You're unlocking your laser sight for your battle rifle,
and here's another thing that's commonly said: adding attachments make the gun worse. The base guns, for some reason, are better than when you add attachments. It ruins them. But anyway, the gun, and you've got people running around with marksman rifles, right? And marksman rifles tend to be like 1 or 2 hit kills at medium to long range. You've got people that are running around with builds of marksman rifles, and they're using them like shotguns. So you're literally in lobbies, and people are just running around with these marksman rifles like shotguns. It's just the gun balancing is all really bizarre. Most guns are viable. But like there's just no real like SMGs for short range, assault rifles medium range, marksman rifles, snipers long range. There isn't that distinction. Everything is like short range, okay, and it's just really bizarre. Like the way they've balanced it. Like the whole game is just a really bizarre setup for something that I'd expect better from Infinity Ward from an Activision. Wow. Like
I don't know why they should know all this stuff. More of these tutters, like. I feel like every year there's massive problems people have with the games generally. I don't know, it can be a myriad of different reasons.
But they're fundamental as well. There's all these things around it. There's bugs and things which you can almost forgive, right? And go, right, okay, well, we're going
that road.
You can forgive it to an extent, but like core gameplay, like the way the maps play and the way the guns feel and the balance between the guns is something you'd expect them to have figured out by now. Like, there's 20 years of Call of Duty, and I'm getting someone running around with a marksman rifle, silenced with a shotgun. Like, there's something clearly that's wrong. Like, you've done something wrong there. You're not rewarding that player for using that gun.
That sounds
They're just
perfect
exploiting
to me.
it.
Like that noob tube. I'll be well up for using the marksman rifle as a shotgun.
So there you go. Well, I'm conscious I could go on for too long, but essentially,
he's not happy at the moment.
It's not great.
So, given that there's three issues, three types of issue that have multiple blowers underneath, what's the confidence level that they get this to I mean, what's if nothing fundamentally changes? What are you going to carry on playing it, or will you walk away?
The maps are the maps, right? This is the problem. Like the maps are the maps. I'd like to see, like maybe the maps would play better if the guns were better balanced. Like as an example, right, a battle rifle, and just to elaborate on why my feelings like that, I elaborated earlier. I played the worst gun in the game. It's called an FTAC Recon. It's a battle rifle, single fire. You get 10 bullets with this single fire gun, right? Generally, a battle rifle, so it will be like a medium to long range, a 2-hit. Kill chest heads, like something like that. Like it takes 3 hits minimum to kill someone. You've got 10 bullets. A pistol, like sidearm, 3 hits to kill them. So they've balanced a battle rifle in the same way as a pistol at the same range.
Lovely.
Like it's just bizarre. Like this is what I mean. Like it's fundamentally. But if you've got a Deagle, headshot, 1 kill, like 1 shot. Like,
as it should be. Deagle should always be OP.
But there's no real like downsides to it. Like the gun balancing, I just feel is just a bit bizarre. Like in terms of like how they're broadly just balanced across the board. So yeah, if they rebalanced the guns and made them more viable at certain ranges and things, like it might make the maps play slightly better. But broadly, there's no like shipment style or Rust style map.
No.
Like it's really close range. There's none that map isn't there, which I find really weird for an Activision Infinity Ward game. Like there's this, it's just a bit bizarre, really. I found it very underwhelming. Like I'm enjoying playing. I'm playing it in a group, so I enjoy playing with my friends. But ultimately, the gaming experience isn't very good. I have to say, other than the odd few games.
Does that group have similar issues? Are you all sort of in there going, "Fucking hell, it's done that again. Oh, that prick with the fucking battle rifle just shotgunned me." Like, is that? It's all.
Yeah. Like literally a regular. If you joined a party,
I won't.
When we were playing, I'm just saying, if you did, and you were in there for 5-10 minutes, you'd literally just hear things like that. It's like, great, he's running around. Yeah. Like literally, you can go from having a game where you get like 26 kills with 10 deaths to literally getting 4 kills and 22 deaths the next game. Like it really does swing like that. It's just I mean, there's 1 or 2 okay maps that I'd quite enjoy playing, but really as a launch, like to hate the majority of the maps and to not fundamentally enjoy the gameplay experience is disappointing, I think.
Yeah, doesn't sound ideal, but it sounds like you're going to persevere with it anyway. Like if they sat there and did nothing and put feet up.
No, not if. I mean, they are doing.
You'll be back in there leveling those guns up for Warzone.
Again, another thing that's annoyed me. Turned it on today. I've got a 50 gigabyte update.
Yep, standard.
What are we doing? It was about 800 meg on PlayStation and similarly on PC. Why have I got a 50 gig update for this on the Xbox?
I haven't got that cracking compression that the PlayStation 5's got. That's what old Tech Boy was saying. He said, "Look, all your file size would be different. It'd be lower. That's what you pay for."
But yeah, they have released an update which seems to have slightly sorted out some of the issues on the front screen, but not all of them. But it's just I think the reason I hold it in such a higher level is because it's such a huge company with so much money and resource. Like to have these fundamental issues, and it's not even a new game. No. Right, it's a reiteration. They're comfortable with the engine. They know what they're doing. Like, why are we releasing it in this horrible state? It's just bizarre.
Yeah,
and that's it. I promise that is it now.
I mean, they've pulled off. They've basically various times given other studios who've done other games outside Call of Duty and gone, right, you're helping with Call of Duty, like liquidated them into that machine. So they're not lacking resource and things. No. Like it's just. I don't know. I feel pleased that I'm not involved in any of this anymore because it'll drive me up the wall, I think.
It's almost, I wouldn't say it's heartbreaking, but it's just gutting because I was like, I played the beta and I liked it and I was like, this is more like it. This is more like a Call of Duty game.
Yeah. And
then you get served up with this and it's just a bit like, what are we doing? And then everyone's going, they need to bring back some of the old maps. I'm like, right, so now what we're saying is they can't do anything beyond what they've done. Yeah, we've got to go back into the archives for the good stuff. Like, why can't we bring it on to the next level? Yeah, there you go. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
So people will be asking, like, when's time for gaming gallery chat? Like, in terms of just maybe not Call of Duty specifically, but looking at multiplayer games, where do you stand? Is that campaign going to get looked at?
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that's annoying me, there's no co-op campaign, which there should be. There's co-op missions, but I should at this point have a co-op campaign for that, and I don't. But yeah, I'm going to do the campaign on it. It looks quite good, to be fair. So, and again, interestingly, they've also tied to some of the multiplayer character unlocks and things to doing the single player and co-op.
A reason to play it for some of the multiplayer only people.
Yeah, it's a reason to play it. But yeah, I want to play it. I played obviously all the other Modern Warfare stories, and this is kind of the rehash of that. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be picking that up at some point. But I don't know at what point you review multiplayer.
No,
I find that
it's difficult.
A really difficult one, because it is what it is. I mean, if I rate it now, it's a botch job. But then it.
Well, I always say that whenever we speak about games, they are a little snapshot of that game at that point. And things can be revisited. Even like single player games, I've gone back and revisited and had different opinions playing. And that's a game that's fairly static in terms of it's not going to fundamentally change or evolve or grow. It was a replay, and I came out of a different perspective. So nothing's set in stone forever. But I'm tempted at some point just to come to you and go, right, draw a line under it. Now you tell us what's happening. So leave that little bit of tantalising prospect for those at home to rehash that entire rant potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, once I've completed that campaign, to kind of bottle it up as a game as a whole. Obviously, keep Warzone separate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's ultimately it's been a disappointing launch, I think, for what would have been a really hotly anticipated game. I mean, I'm sure there's people that are out there playing it and they don't know any different, but
Activision don't know any different because they've just fucking blown in the money, so to them.
They're going, we've already got money in the bag. I mean, they've got a little to be fair to them, they've got a Trello board up where they're actually saying these are all the known issues, this is what we're working on and stuff like that. They're trying to be transparent at everything, but don't release it. Like, surely you've had 3 years to work on this.
Has to come at that time. That's it. And this might be the last time they have to do that, because the rumor is next year it's taking a break. So
yeah.
And if and when Microsoft own it, they may decide a completely different approach is needed, and that we don't stick to this, late October, November release date like as like a gospel. We have to do this.
Yeah.
It just gives more flexibility. But then I've long said that about Game Pass games. Just make sure they're out and they're ready. And Phil chucks out Halo Infinite, and you're like, well,
when there's money to be made, like when you've got this sort of cash cow there. But I think the Warzone release has got to be a good one. I think that, and I'm sure they're looking at that with at least one eye, if not, basically two on that release. I think if that releases well, I think people will forgive the Modern Warfare and forget it. But it's just I've been long thinking, I've been missing a bit of multiplayer. Like, I miss those days of when I used to just play a bit of Search and Destroy, a bit of Kill Confirm and stuff like that, rather than the endless Warzone grind that's kind of seeped in. And I've been playing it, and I'm like, this is not. This isn't enjoyable. Like, I've been thinking, I'd rather play bloody Warzone. It's just a bit of a disappointing release all round, I think.
No, and Warzone 2 will be. It's less than 10 days away. So people will be, or less than 2 weeks away, sorry. November the 16th. So we'll see how that goes. Right. We're going to, as we do, transition and segment into some game impressions. This time, Adcock and myself are going to chat through The Quarry from Supermassive Games. Now, I've blown this because essentially what you're going to be forced to get is The Quarry this week. You might get a gap next week because God of War impressions may well be lurking at that point. We should have hands on by then. And then the following week is The Devil in Me, which is the final part of the House of Ashes Season 1 for that old, not House of Ashes, bloody Dark Pitched Anthology season. And I wanted that out close to when that final episode drops. And that's going to be Man of Medan, Little Hope, and House of Ashes. So that's coming probably next week, so in a couple of weeks' time. And I thought the Devil in Me was at the end of the month, so I blew the scheduling, cost myself. So now that's going to have to be squeezed in willy-nilly, meaning another bumper episode for the audience at home. Anyway, nothing more for us to say for this particular part of Idle Game Chat, but we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions. This time I'm joined by Pac-Man himself, Tom Adcock, sitting there waiting to talk about The Quarry, a spiritual successor to Until Dawn. Narrative-based horror. This doesn't seem like your bag, other than the horror part.
It's grown on me, mate. It's the third one I've played now, so coming to terms with the genre. And you're right, yeah, I do like a horror. Yeah, I'm all for it. Classic teen campfire horror. So yeah, I see it. I don't know why, to be honest. I mean, I guess maybe there's just not that many games that have interested me this year.
It's not been a great year, is it?
No, and I've played all of these in some kind of co-op form, which is always good fun and sort of forces me to play then. Not that I needed it, but yeah. So that's The Quarry.
Yeah. So this was released 10th of June 2022, and really, I mean, the elevator pitch is that it's an Until Dawn spiritual successor, not a sequel in any way, and it's a horror narrative-based game. I'm kind of, and just a little bit of cards on the table, just sort of a smooth transition. I'm up to speed on everything that Supermassive Games have been doing, because they've also been churning out the Dark Pictures anthology, which they've done 3 of, hopefully still by the time people have listened to this, and a 4th is coming out as we record this, delays notwithstanding, later on this year. So I've played through all of those, and I've actually played them in order. You've done Man of Medan, Until Dawn, and now this from the Supermassive sort of stable, not other, people that have tried their luck at it.
Yeah.
And I guess from my perspective, I generally like these games. I couldn't play them 24/7 all the time. Like if they were out every week, obviously, I think, as with all things they say, you've got to have a healthy, balanced diet. This can make up a good part of that balanced diet now and again. I don't want to be saying, I don't want to be sitting there playing Elden Ring 24/7 either, relentlessly. Don't want to be playing Horizon 24/7 relentlessly. So these games, some people have a real issue with them because they're like, oh, they're not games. Or like, I've never been like that. I've always been on the side of, no, I enjoy these. And generally have enjoyed other narrative-based games, whether it's Life is Strange, starting off with the Walking Dead series or the Telltale's seasons that they pumped out there. But what about you when it comes to narrative-based stuff, and maybe specifically Supermassive stuff, because you've had a crack at least 2 of them before?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I guess I'm a little bit different to you in that I definitely played The Walking Dead, the first season, Clementine, first, before I played any of the Supermassive games. And I loved that. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And then I played Until Dawn, and I thought it was good. But to be honest, I was definitely in the camp of, that's not a game. That's
right.
a film with quick time events. I just didn't really understand the appeal as much. Enjoyed it still, but more the experience of playing with friends and family. I played Man of Medan with you, which, to be fair, is definitely probably a weaker storyline, probably a weaker game overall, but I enjoyed it more. And then I'm not really sure. I wasn't really looking out for The Quarry, but then saw it released, saw it got good reviews, like remembering those previous experiences. I just thought, you know what, I've got nothing else to play. I fancy a bit of that, so jumped in.
Yeah, and why not? The only other thing really from my perspective to point out, and this, providing I don't forget, this will be important come when we close up, but I delved quite deeply into The Quarry, multiple playthroughs, 2 complete full ones, and tacked on a bit of experimentation for other outcomes / trophies / just let's see what happens type thing, which I don't typically do. What I've been doing with the Dark Pictures anthology is one playthrough normally, and the second playthrough, they've actually got what they call the Curator's Cut, where you go through 60% of the game as a different character. There's a little bit of overlap. Yeah. It's not completely new, but you get a different perspective, and you can get through that in like half the time, unless you're still looking for collectibles and things, but I don't typically do that. And that's about what I do, sort of 2 playthroughs, 1.5 in reality when you think about it, and then done. This, I was in there tons. I was messing around with it for way longer than I thought I would. And you might be thinking, oh, that sounds like it's great then. Well, one of the problems was that it wasn't a great experience, and that's why it took so long. But I'll get to that right at the end. So just keep that, sort of plant that seed, so that I'll be coming to sort of hammer supermassive games towards the back end. Let's set the stage quickly. I'm just going to read out. I like to do this now. Read out what's on the store page, so that the guys at home can get an idea of what's being marketed to them, and then you can either raise your eyebrows and be like, "Well, that's massive lies there," or kind of nod along to it. But here's what we've got in terms of a store page on the PlayStation Store. We played this both on the PS5. You bought the physical disc and lent it to me, which was very kind of you. So that's how I jumped in on this. And here's what they've got to say to themselves. As the sun sets on the last day of summer camp, the councillors of Hackett Quarry throw a party to celebrate. Things quickly take a turn for the worse. Hunted by blood-drenched locals and something far more sinister, the teens' party plans unravel into an unpredictable night of horror. Play as each of the 9 councillors in a thrilling cinematic tale where every decision shapes your story. And it's got a few little taglines and what. Your story, their fate. A stunning cinematic experience. Enjoy the fright with friends. Customise your experience. But that's how they're selling it. That's what it's being pumped out on the store there. So you guys keep that in mind. These are always tricky to talk about because obviously a lot of the game hinges on the narrative and whatnot. So we're going to tread as carefully as we can. And let's do it this way. How did you feel overall, start to finish, about The Quarry in terms of the beat-to-beat narrative, knowing that things can go completely differently depending on, outcomes and what you're up to, which is a cool thing about these games. They do have a lot of different outcomes, but considering the time you spent with it, you went through and played through it a second, well, about half another time, I guess, because you skipped the first few chapters. But how was you when you sat down and finished sort of both your playthroughs and was like, in terms of story, how does that hold up?
I quite enjoyed it, storyline. I mean, I wouldn't say any of these games personally for me have had mind-blowing stories. They're kind of your typical horror, setup and execution, really. I like the fact that the threat here was more supernatural. I don't want to spoil anything than in one of the other games I played, which maybe was a bit fake out. Anyway, so I enjoyed that aspect. I enjoyed my experience in that we played through once and done horribly, but that made for some really funny experiences.
Talk about that, actually. Talk about how you played it, because I think that's important, because I played it obviously completely differently.
Yeah. So I played it with family, 2 nephews, passing the pad. We've done, you can set it up literally couch co-op. And you can literally choose your characters, you can move them around, and you get an even pick of the characters.
Yeah.
I made it quite good, except for, I think I said to you offline that we kind of moved what was, I assume, the optimum setup, and I just moved it around a lot, which meant that sometimes one of us would have 3 chapters or 3 parts of a chapter in a row before the other person got to go.
So the advice there is to leave the game to decide who's going to be what player, because it will try and distribute it somewhat evenly.
Exactly, yeah. So don't do what I did. That's moronic. Didn't even know who the characters were at that point either, so pointless.
No idea.
So we had the first playthrough and done it all, just as we thought the decisions should be made. Went pretty much wrong on multiple aspects, to the point where we didn't even see the last couple of chapters, which led to us doing a second playthrough where we tried to right our wrongs, which we, for the most part, I think we did, because I think I have read now you can keep more people alive than we managed to, but only just. Like, we saw one of the, you know, more decent endings, and I really enjoyed that, if I'm honest, because I like the fact that you could just avoid the first few chapters, which are really just your character development, your setup.
Yeah.
But like you said, we missed, I think it's probably up to chapter 3 of 12, I think there is. I think maybe one's an epilogue or something. No, not much happens. So that was nice. That it gave you the option to do that. And yeah, like, as I said, I'd probably like to go back and play Until Dawn, which I think most people consider the strongest because of my like initial thoughts of it. Now that I'm more into the genre, I feel like I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. And I can't really remember it, but
no,
I would say I enjoyed this experience the most of the 3 I've played so far.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear for sure. You know, I played it completely differently, so I played it on my own both times, no input, headphones on, so get those that's tension ranked up and the scares come thick and fast. And yeah, I think in terms of I enjoyed the overall kind of story and what's going on here as well. I think it was good. I certainly enjoyed it more than Until Dawn, which I'm kind of, I don't want to compare it too much to Dark Pictures Anthology because there's a discrepancy in the price, which we'll probably get on later. They're clearly lower budget titles and they're coming out yearly. This is much more of like, okay, Until Dawn levels of length. You know, I think my first playthrough clocked in at 9 hours exactly. And then the second one I went through in about 6 or 7 because I wasn't looking for collectibles and kind of knew where to go, etc. But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good crack, and the, you know, what occurs on the quarry is good fun, and I got a pretty decent outcome the first time. Still didn't keep everyone alive. Like, I think it's difficult to do. I kind of knew where I'd gone wrong, or thought I'd gone wrong, and went back to sort of try and correct that. Then I was looking at like, oh, can I do an all death run? But you know, there's a lot of moving parts in these games, a lot of stuff under the hood that you kind of don't appreciate. But generally, whatever outcome I ended up with, I was pretty satisfied with. And I think what helps it really is how well acted the game is, in my opinion. The characters themselves, I mean, I think it's fair to say it's a bit, well, it's horror genre relatable sort of teens. They all look massively too old to be teens. I've never understood about it. Like, it's like one of them would be like, hang on a minute, there's no way you'd be behaving like that. Like, are they 18? Because I get confused with Americans because they don't finish school till later, do they? It seems like they don't pack up till they're adults, then they're off to college straight away.
Yeah, I guess they could all. I don't think it,
because they're all talking about going to college, aren't they?
Right. Yeah, I think at least a few of them are. So, I mean, summer camp, you're going to be you're not going to be above like 21, I guess.
But I can't imagine doing that job. A counsellor? Like, it sounds like the worst job in the world. You've done it.
Done it. Yeah.
In America.
Yeah. In America, yeah.
Mate.
No horror.
No, well.
No.
That just sounds like the worst thing in the world to me. Is it?
It's pretty. You know what? So I did it like I was what they called a general counsellor. So my day, I was like, you have like a bunk full of kids. And some counsellors would be like specialists, so they would be like the swimming counsellor or whatever. So they would sit at a little like crawl or the ropes course, and people would come through and they'd do the same thing day in, day out. Whereas I had no skills. Video games aren't really a thing in summer camp. So I like basically was a general counsellor and followed my kids around. So like my days were just like constant like fun. You know, I got to see all my friends who were working there. Got to play like football for a bit, got to like, you know, climb some ropes, got to play some weird American games called Gaga and whatnot. It was good fun. I loved it. TV, like that was the bad side. Trying to do like acting, like they would have like shows and things at night, and they'll try and make you all get involved. Americans are way too like happy to sing and dance, and like I'm a moody Englishman. I don't want to be doing any of that.
No. Yeah, I can imagine that being a pain in the ass. But no, going back to that, I can't relate to this because I've never experienced it. But at least you have, so that's reasonably interesting. What did you think of characters and acting, and then we'll get into the actual actors and actresses that were kind of in it, but because they have to carry a lot of what these games are. If it falls apart at the seams, either story-wise or acting / dialogue and character-wise, you're in for a tough 9 hours.
Yeah, I mean, this first bit sounds a bit harsh, but bear with me. In that, characters kind of like poor, but just cliches of exactly what you'd expect to see in a teen horror film.
Coming of age father, it's all there.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they're kids at a summer camp. It's a horror game movie. Like, you know, you've got the cocky one, you've got the pretty one, you've got the quiet one, you've got all the cliches of people. So the characters, I wouldn't say are particularly good. Say they've got some heavyweight actors behind them, you know, proper Hollywood people in TV shows, people in movies, and it shows. Like, everything's delivered well. They actually make you invested in the characters for the most part. But, do you know, I've got a question for you, actually. You know, because obviously the game starts, you don't see them at summer camp, you don't know if they've been smacking kids and stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of get an overview of people. So do you try and play them how you think they're meant to be, or do you just try and make them all nice? Or
it's a good question, and there's a few answers. So I have in the past tried to sort of follow what I feel would be the right response. Over time, I've learned that you'll likely get punished for, say, if one of them's cocky and just a bit of an arsehole. If you keep choosing those options, they will come unstuck pretty early, and then I feel like you lose a bit of the story once someone's gone. So I try to do. So what I try and do now, and I was actually toying with doing the opposite first of all, but I think it'll be an even bigger disaster. But try and do the morally right thing, like whatever the options are. And sometimes what I like about this, you kind of get two responses. I didn't like the fact that they removed the sort of say nothing response. That I like to be able to sometimes, when someone says something, if they're talking in a group, just not get involved and just let them sort of have at it. But in this, you kind of have to choose a response of sorts. But what I found
interesting,
what I found good about,
I forgot that.
Yeah,
sorry, go on, carry on.
What I liked about the choices they did give you, it felt like whatever I'm going to say here feels it's in line with their character. So someone who's cocky and, you know, a bit of a lad, for a lack of a better term, they're still going to deliver the line in such a way, and there's not going to be an option there for them suddenly to completely change character. It's all still there. But going back to there being no say nothing, that was an option that's not that's present in the Dark Pictures games. Also, there's no view of each character's relationship with the other counsellors and their character traits. So in the Dark Pictures games, every time you control a character, you press pause, it shows their little face the same way, pops up, you know, it can move them around, all that shit. On the right hand side, it has like their traits based on how you've been kind of behaving with them. So it might be arrogant, empathetic, sad, like, and it does. I don't know how much it changes, but I've done enough playthroughs where it changes quite a bit, and it'll show a different personality trait. That's important because when you're not controlling that character, they will then behave based on those traits you've kind of printed on them. I didn't get the feeling that happened in this. It felt a little bit less dynamic from that perspective. It felt like that was, maybe it was going on, but because they never communicated that being a system, I was a bit like, are they just going to behave the same? And when I did my second playthrough, I noticed that the characters did basically say the same thing when the AI was controlling them. In the Dark Pictures games, they don't. Like, if you've needled them with a particular character and bombed their relationship, they will respond quite adversarially to you. Whereas if you've, you know, been nice to them, they will respond nicely. And that can block off and create different paths in the Dark Pictures. If someone's not happy with you as a character, that can chop off an opportunity for help or support or something like that. I never got the feeling that was the case here. It never felt like it went that deep. And it may well have just been because it wasn't communicated in any way. There was no way to visibly see this. But in my two playthroughs and my experimentation, it was very much, it's the same no matter kind of what you do. The AI has less focus on how they can kind of interact when you're not directly controlling that character.
I know I should know this because I've played Man of Medan, but I'm assuming this had a significantly bigger cast than the Dark Pictures games.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's the reason.
Oh, possibly. Yeah. I mean, there's
adding
5...
one or two characters.
Yeah, I think there's 5 in Man of Medan, so about half.
Yeah.
But still, that's something that I always enjoyed messing with and seeing how. And you'd see it in the Dark Pictures games. You'd see the kind of change in the AI responding to you throughout the game, and it felt a bit more natural that those relationships were developed and kept throughout. Whereas on here, you'd say something really pissy to someone, there'll be, you know, back and forth, you'd keep needling them, and then suddenly, because there's a canned sort of moment, they would be back on like good terms and whatnot. So
yeah.
It may be it might be that the Dark Pictures anthology have manipulated me and that none of that's really going on. But at least it felt like under the hood there's a lot more churn going on in terms of dynamic moments. So that was a bit of something I noticed straight away as soon as I played it. Was in general it felt like you had less input here. Just in general for conversations and what you're doing, felt like you didn't have as many chances to kind of interject. However, when you do interject, most of the time it mattered. So there's kind of a balance between making you just get involved for the sake of it, you know, just to have you interact. But yeah, there's some differences certainly between this, and considering they're from the same studio, I thought they'd be a lot more aligned, but evidently not. We touched about the characters themselves and talked a little bit about the talent that's involved in delivering these lines. I must admit, I only knew David Arquette from these. I didn't know any of the other people. I didn't feel like I recognised them. There's the one chap in there is the guy out of Earl. What was that thing about saving Earl or whatever it is? Some comedy where he's trying to make up for his karma.
What was that? My Name is
Earl. Yeah, he's like his big mate. He's in it. He's one of the Hackett sons, like part of the Hackett family. So
the one with the dungarees on.
He's the big fella, yeah. So he's been cast as that.
That makes sense.
But other than those two, and I didn't know that till I'd looked it up. Obviously, I recognised David Arquette, but none of the others I recognised. What about you? Did you recognise any of these people?
So Arquette, obviously,
yeah.
And then the other one who I pegged straight away, although I couldn't place her for a while. I can't think of her name in the game, but the girl, she's from Modern Family, plays one of the daughters.
Oh, was it Abigail?
I think it might have been Abigail. Yeah.
Ariel Winter.
She was the first. Yeah.
Yep.
Big time. Yeah. So, because her character model is literally spot on, but I haven't seen that show in about 2 or 3 years. So I kind of, when you know someone, then as soon as I looked it up, I was like, yeah, of course it is. So yeah, those two were the ones that came out straight away.
I'd argue that Arquette is not at his best here. I mean,
no.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Like, it wasn't bad, but I felt like everyone else was pretty good. Like, mostly very good. But it was weird to sort of see him floundering amongst the young talent. But then again, they've got to put that shit on their face. I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes. They put that mounting system pointing out. He's probably too old and like, what's all this?
I don't know what's going on. Get me into Scream.
Yeah.
Good in.
Well, there's that. What's it called? Peacock series, I think. Is it Peacock or Paramount? They're doing a Scream sort of follow up.
Oh my god.
So he's in it.
Of course he is.
So that's that.
He's been on TV in 15 years, has he? Might not be true, actually. I don't know.
No, I don't know. He's been wrestling. He went back to wrestling for a while because.
The fact that you say went back to wrestling, I didn't know he was in wrestling.
So in 2000 or 2001, WCW, when it was like failing, so this was like big time, like the last years basically, he was in there as a character and won the sort of main World Heavyweight Championship. And that's, unsurprisingly, one of the big reasons why WCW went under, because real fans were kind of like, what is going on here? David Arquette's the champ. But then and I may well be getting this wrong, but there's a documentary about it. It says you cannot kill David Arquette, and it's him wanting to go back and do it properly because he felt like he sort of was responsible for bringing down WCW, kind of like didn't respect the business and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he went out and like tried to do it properly on like the indies. So I have a little tip there. Now acted involved for Arquette, so it might be good. In terms of interaction, we've got quick time events. You can wander around the camera angles generally were okay because they give you free movement of the camera. However, they still have moments where that's not the case, and you have this fixed camera, and you sort of walk in, suddenly it'll cut, and then you walk in the other way. And again, people go, "Oh, Resident Evil people are realising when they play these games that actually they need banning completely. I don't know why they couldn't make it all free camera. I know what they do because they can set the camera up and jump scare you easier. It's as simple as that. But in terms of the playability of it, we know it's limited. But how did you get on with the QTEs and the fucking stop breathing mechanic that they implemented?
Yeah, fine. If anything, and it's interesting because I know you sent me something today about this. I did think they were all a bit simple, if you know what I mean. I feel like maybe that's not the case. I'm sure you'll have something to say about that in a second. But yeah, they were fine. I just remember I got someone killed Until Dawn. I felt like it was almost impossible in the QuickTime events to do this. I'd always take the shortcuts. I could do the more QuickTime events. Yeah. Because it was quite easy. It would be up, down, left, or right, but you had both sticks as an option. And for me, I'm in my old brain when it's square, triangle, X and O. Yeah. Even though I know exactly where they are, when it's QuickTime, I'm no, I'm doing Pro Evo and I can blow it. When it's just directional, I'm that's not going to happen. And then the don't breathe is basically if you choose to hide often, an enemy will come into your vicinity. It'll be a red mist on the screen. Yeah. And essentially, you just hold X, and you seem to have plenty of air. Yep. So
you hold X.
When he goes, you can just
you hold X, and then when the red thing disappears, you let go of X. And there's
you can't die doing that.
I thought because there's a bunch of tutorials that go into the game. These little cute cartoons. It remind me a little bit of BioShock or Fallout. They kind of go through. It's like a little cartoon that runs.
Yeah.
It's Hackett's Quarry. It's all sort of trying to show it. I thought you could, even once the threat had gone, so the red mist had gone, your controller stopped vibrating, that that basically sometimes they might fake you out, that you'd do that and they would actually be still nearby. So you had to wait.
Yeah.
You kept saying wait for the right moment, not the first, the right. And and the first few times, if you hold it, it will give you an opportunity to start with. Go, and the bar will go down. And then right at the end, there'll be another one. And I was like, okay, so it's trying to make me wait to that second time. Obviously, when it mattered at one point, that option didn't happen. And I ran the clock down and I went, and then I got killed. No way of getting out of it. I was extremely angry at that because it's the easiest. It's so easy, and I thought it must be more complex than this. And because I'd never been punished earlier on in the game, I thought I was fine. So no, literally you hold X, and then when the red mist disappears from the screen and your controller stops vibrating, which is at the same time, just let go of X, and you will get through that moment. And then all the other QTEs are directional, so you just flick the analog stick. You know what? I overcomplicated that as well. I thought you had to hold circle and press the direction. Didn't fail any of those, but again, thought it can't just be flicking the stick. It can't be. No, it was. And then you got the classic ones where you have to mash a button. It's all very easy. It's all very easy stuff, like you said. And actually, they've released a patch to where you can choose to increase the difficulty of that. And they've been promoting it as you get extra story. And I was like, you get less story usually if someone dies. So don't completely lie to people. But that's out now, and if you want to turn that on, you can. The reason why I thought it was interesting is because this game, The Quarry, started off as what they was going to call a signature Stadia game. So Stadia is the streaming technology from Google, and I had the thought that maybe because it was set up initially to be a streaming game where there's a bit of latency either way, it might not be perfect, whether they just narrowed down and made the QuickTime events easier to account for any latency either side. Now, 2K came along and saved the game, basically. It wasn't going to get published, it was going to get cancelled. They came along and said, look, we'll give you the money to finish it, publish it, take a cut, etc. So they could have gone in and reworked it, and they may have just decided this is going to be an easier option. But again, comparing it to the Dark Pictures games, there's no directional stuff, it's all face buttons, and the hide stuff, like holding your breath, it's a heartbeat thing, and you have to time the X presses to go boom, 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 boom. There's a visual cue. Much easier to get wrong, but also, in my opinion, easier to kind of make sense of. But yeah, that was kind of my little factoid, that The Quarry started life as a Stadia streaming title, so that may well have impacted some of the stuff going on. And also, if people felt they cut corners somewhere, this was going to go on the chopping block at some point until 2K of all people came along and sort of saved it. So worth keeping that in mind, I guess, that it would have just gone away. Is there anything else you want to touch upon?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I do, but it's more like the story beats things which we're not allowed to obviously go into, and then some of the. Because that's the thing, a lot of the sort of fun in this game comes from making wrong decisions and then going back and fixing them.
Yeah.
But I would say there's a couple of, like, without spoiling anything, there's randomness. Like, I know you had an instance and we had one where it's like a 50-50 toss-up. There's no there's no sensible decision to make to keep someone alive. You roll the dice and then you get absolutely murked and you're stuck with that. So I think maybe that happened to you and to me, and I was like, I don't know, it just felt like it was a bit cheap, There's no character beats or no decisions you can make. It's literally A or B. Yeah. Both seem as equally safe. I guess maybe in hindsight, maybe not, but still, like, seemed a bit cheap, really.
Yeah, I definitely had one that I was not happy with, because I was like, that's cheap. And then another one was that mistake from that breathing fucking game. So I was fuming on both accounts. I felt like I'd been stitched up majorly there. Interestingly, there's a certain version of the game that unlocks this to start with, but once you've played through it once, it unlocks a rewind mode. I don't know if you got this when you went and replayed it.
I must have, yeah.
Basically, throughout your playthrough, you get 3 attempts to go back. So now I don't know necessarily if I'd want to use that on a first playthrough at all. I kind of feel like it is what it is. But going back, that's a bit of a halfway house to stop you making a mess of it. The trouble is, the way that you can get yourself into a pickle, if you want to use the rewind feature to save someone, this is no joke, because I made it happen because I wanted to test if it was still a thing. You could be in chapter 10, which is like the back end of the game, and it's like, oh, so-and-so's just died, do you want to save him? Like, oh, yeah, cool. So it goes, okay, if you want to do that, you have to go out to chapter 1. 1. Oh, what, and then skip back to 10? No, play from 1 and do the whole game again. I mean...
Always 1, or is that...
No, not always.
That's where the original decision...
Exactly, which I kind of appreciate, but at the same time, who in their right mind is going to take that trade-off and replay 88% of the game again just to redo that decision and hope you don't balls up a QT on the way, because, you do that, they're dead. You might kill someone else inadvertently.
Yeah, because you feel like the best way to do that would be to... You make the initial decision, then it fast tracks you to all the other decisions along the way for that character.
Yeah.
But assuming that you've made all the same decisions for all the others, just to get you back.
Yeah.
Within, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour, not 9 hours.
Not 9 hours, no. And this plays into one of my major criticisms, and it's a very specific scenario-based criticism, because you can play this game once and it will never affect you. But if you want to go back into this game, dive into it, find the secrets, God forbid you want to get the Platinum Trophy in this thing, because I've looked at some of them and I just think, how much time would this take? It will take 10 times longer than you need to. Anyway, my advice is don't, because The Quarry does such a bad job at being flexible. And again, first playthrough, all bets are off. Let's just run with it. Whatever happens, happens. Once someone's done that, there needs to be tools, in my opinion, for you to be able to go back piecemeal by piecemeal, redo certain decisions, change outcomes. That is not the case in The Quarry. The way that it operates is that you end up losing, in most cases, huge chunks of time, because there's no way to skip non-interactive cutscenes either. So you have to just sit through those again. The chapter select is there, and I was like, okay, this will save the day. But again, it's only segregated by the chapters. Now, the chapters, for the most part, this is one thing I did like. I say 2/3 of the game are really well paced. They're sort of probably between 45 minutes and an hour. like a nice pace, sort of jetting along. The back third, they sort of blow over an hour. You're kind of sitting there thinking, right, they've clearly just padded the back end of this. So you want to go back 3 chapters to change one thing to get a new outcome at the very end. You have to replay 3 hours of the game. There's no way to make it quicker. There's no fast forward. There's nothing like that. And the asinine thing about
What's mad there, mate? What's mad is one of those back end chapters, the one set in the jail.
Yeah.
I don't think you can make any decision there that has any impact at all on anything, but you still have to watch. Well, actually, I guess there are. We played it the same both times, but it's like a flashback.
Yeah.
So I can't see how anything you do there could affect anything main game. Maybe one decision, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, there's like one thing that matters there. But again, if you want to go back and just change that one thing for something that happens in chapter 10, you have to go back to, I think it's like chapter 6 or something, and then play 7, 8, 9, and 10 to see it through. And it's not even just that, because you've got 11 chapters in there, including the prologue. Okay, House of Ashes. This is the anthology game from last year, 2021. That's got 24 chapters or scenes to select from.
Okay.
So you've got 11 versus 24. It's also half the length. So you think how much easier it is to go back to a granular moment and redo just that piece and watch an outcome, earn a trophy, do whatever. This is twice the length and has half the amount of just rewind points. It's crazy. And they're in the same fucking development team. You'd think all these good ideas would bubble to the top and then sort of waterfall down. Say, we've got this good sort of option in here where people can rewind, or we're going to do granular scene skipping. No, the Quarry feels like it's made by a different developer from this perspective. And I understand there's 2 teams doing this, but surely some sort of synergy between the teams.
Could it be the Stadia thing again, though, do you think? Maybe where this has been in development a lot longer and the anthology games are actually effectively newer.
They're starting to lap it. Maybe, because you could be right. We have no idea how long this sat on the shit pile for. And like I said, 2K came along and said, finish it. I doubt they said, take as much time as you need. They probably said, look, get this out by the summer or we'll say goodbye again. So I'm starting to see this story becoming like, it's clearly, to me, impacted the game. And if you want to go back in and kind of do all this stuff again, it's such a chore. It's horrible. It's a horrible experience going in and experimenting. And guess what? One of the fun things to do with this game, if you're that way inclined, is to go back and experiment, see how things go down different paths. And they just make it so difficult here. It's definitely not perfect in the anthology games. Dark Pictures are not perfect. But compared to this, you think, well, they must have been doing this for 10 years and learnt all this knowledge. What they really need, all these games, is some sort of rewind where you can just hold like L2 and just go back as far as you want. Again, make it unlockable. Don't put it in first run, or have it optional to be turned on or off. But that part of it really annoyed me after I'd finished the game sort of twice. I wanted to go back and see other things, and it was just fighting against the game, like replaying and watching. I must have seen those last 3 chapters 6 times. And it's just like, there's a better way. You guys have already done it, so I don't know what you're doing with this one, but there are better ways to be behaving with this. But like I said, that's only a problem if you want to go back and do all that stuff. If you're just going to do a one and done, you can almost ignore what I've said there, but I had to rant. I had to. Because for some reason, they've decided to not only reduce the amount of points that you can go back to, but made the back chapters really long as well, just to really sink the time out of you. And also, once you go back to a chapter, it overwrites your progress from your main save.
Yeah.
Guess what you can do in the Dark Pictures anthology? It asks you, do you want to overwrite this one or create a new one? Then you can splinter that one off and do whatever you want to do on it and keep that one. Last thing, the collectibles in this, okay? They're part of the games. I enjoy them. You pick them up, you get a bit of like background lore, all good. It doesn't track your collectibles throughout the game. It only tracks them through your playthrough. So the only way to get the trophy, to get all the collectibles, is to start from the beginning and get every single one on that run. You can't play the game once, get 80% of them, then go back and do the last 20%. It just resets it all. There's no, and again, guess what the Dark Pictures Anthology has? This is all tracked universally in the game. So if you start a new save, it's you've already got these 6. Don't worry about those. I don't know what was going on.
I mean, that's mad.
What
are they thinking?
Had I not played the other games, I wouldn't have had that insight, to be honest. I'd have just been like, oh, yeah, it's just, they're a bit shit sometimes. But they've kind of been much better from this perspective.
Yeah.
Several times. And it was a bit jarring for me because I kind of have that close experience. I've been playing them all quite a bit recently. I was a bit like, Christ, why is this so archaic in comparison? And this is the big budget one. The good thing about the Quarry is the budget's clearly was increased to produce it. It's better directed, I'd say. Facial animations are better. Higher profile actors and actresses that are involved. Like, it's clearly had good money spent on it in some areas, but they've made a hash of like some of the mechanical stuff that they have solved in previous games. But there we go. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. That's enough for me. Anyway, now we've got this gaming gallery that we go to these days. Let's see if we want to put these up in our own sort of personal wings. So we're outside the door. I've got the keys here again. So I've had to go back in time. I haven't got a little tap card just yet. Working on that. Vendor's expensive in where we want to place it. Do you want me to unlock the doors and put it into the gaming gallery, or are we just going to go down the pub and say it doesn't earn either a platinum, silver, gold, or bronze?
No, it's going in.
It's going in, all right. I'll unlock the door.
Own little sec. Yeah.
Because if you left it to me, who knows? I was
going to say, you can wait at the door and make your decision in a minute.
I'm getting under the collar. This hat's making me hot, and I've got stress thinking about the Quarry again. So we've gone into your wing. You've obviously got the options of platinum, gold, silver, bronze. We used to have a bit of like, oh, here's the guidance of what it means. Just you know what you do what you think's best. So how do you want to display this? How do you want to reward it?
No, not on the top tier. It's not a platinum.
No.
Gold, leave that for a minute.
Yeah.
Pop it in on the silver.
Nice.
Slide it right in there. Yeah.
Where would you, and this is a ridiculous question to ask, 'cause it's been 7 years, where do you think you would have plopped Until Dawn?
Probably the same.
Okay.
I would have thought. I totally get your criticisms and kind of agree with them, but not everyone's got that Joe brain that needs to...
That ain't a Joe brain, that's an enthusiast brain. They want to get trophies. That's what it says. Experiment with the outcomes. Oh, don't. I deleted all my saves after because I was like, that's the thing. My save was worthless because there's no progress being kept.
No.
I was fuming.
No. But on my 2 playthroughs, I had fun the first time, making a lot of mistakes. Went back, righted the mistakes. Got to choose, start where I wanted to start, and ran it through. And it would have been nice to be able to skip some of the more dialogue heavy scenes, and then especially ones that don't lead to a decision. But other than that, those other bits didn't really affect me. I don't really go. I would say, like most games, I don't even want to play again. This being a tight 10 hours, it felt quite natural and easy to do it a second run. Yeah,
no, that's fair enough. I'm going to put it in my personal wing. I'm going to chuck it in the bronze category. Might be seemingly harsh, but there's the archaic nature of how progression is handled, no multi-save, no universal tracker of collectibles, no real effort being put into alleviate a second, third, full, fifth playthrough to experiment with all the great stuff they've put in the game, all these outcomes, the time that they've spent to fucking mocap and write and come up with all these gruesome deaths or different ways, and they've made it just completely unpalatable to want to do that. And that's what ends up with a bronze. But to be honest, the positives do outweigh the negatives. That is a scenario-based criticism. Overall, I still very much enjoy these games. I like to have them sprinkled in throughout the year. Supermassive, probably... It's tough between them and Life is Strange, but they're doing good work, I'd say, Supermassive at the moment. Understood that I understand that it's not for everyone. You know, these games, if you want more hands-on gameplay, you're not really going to get that. But do take my opinion with a pinch of salt, because I will usually glean the positives out of these games, even if they're pretty dreadful. I don't remember ever giving like a bad rating to anything. It's like story based, maybe like 1. All the Telltales scraped themselves a bronze. I was like, yeah, still worth playing. I'm always just into these games. So, and The Quarry, I like the horror kind of base of it. We've got Life is Strange. We've had the Telltale stuff. Horror is a good place to pop these games. But that's it. The Quarry in the books, a nice silver and bronze. I don't think Supermassive would be too disappointed with that. Arquette might, but he's been slagged off for his acting, so he's going to be more angry about that comment when he listens back to this. But I think that'll do for this particular episode of Idle Game Chat. If you've made it this far, thanks very much for that. Patreon.com/DimpDigital if you want to join the core community. Put your hand in your pocket. Or you can go to twitch.tv/DimpDigital and subscribe there. If you've got Amazon Prime, I mean, Agcog's got 2 of those and he doesn't give us 1. But if you've got Amazon Prime, for free, you can subscribe to the channel and put hand in pocket and give us a few beers, which Adcock will be probably drinking at some point. You know, might be a Dimp Drinks Con coming up. I might have already gone past, actually, by the time they get to this. So, all the photos on social media, exposés, the sun, they're all there. Anyway, nothing more for us to say here, though, other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.